Hello everyone, welcome to Milo e-learning. Today we are doing history, grade 7. We are going to be doing the Kingdom of Mali. But before I start with the Kingdom of Mali, I want to discuss why history is important and where we find information about history from. Now, history is important to study because we basically study information about the past, finding out what had happened, how it happened, when it happened, who it happened to, and we basically learn life lessons from history. So finding out about history makes you a good detective. And from when we learn about the past, we must learn also the mistakes people made so we don't repeat it. And by learning from people's mistakes, we can better our society and our communities. Now, we study history by looking at different types of sources. There are four different types of sources. You get material, written, visual, and oral. In material sources, these are objects. Now, people dig, archaeologists, sorry, normally dig up um, uh, like mines, and they dig up areas and they find objects and they learn about the people who lived in that area. Then we get written sources, which are books and manuscripts. Visual sources are photographs, maps, and drawings, while oral sources are stories that people tell you. Now, sources can be divided into primary sources and secondary sources. Now, first-hand accounts are basically primary sources. They can be oral sources because that would be an eyewitness story, or it could be objects, diaries, interviews, letters. Then secondary sources are second-hand accounts. These are things that you heard about. This is information that is normally found in textbooks or book reviews or articles about other people's work in biographies. Now, if we look at these images, these are different types of sources. We have source A as a drawing of a gold trader in Mali. So this is a visual source. Source B is an object. It is a gold coin. So it is a material source. Source C is basically a manuscript, so it's a written source. And source D is somebody who is an eyewitness event. So that is an oral source. So now that we discussed how we get information, and don't forget, history teaches us life lessons. So in whatever subject you are studying, you must always learn the lesson that it teaches you. So now let's look at the Kingdom of Mali. So Mali is situated in Africa, and in Mali they had the city of Timbuktu, and that's what we're going to be discussing. Mali, how it rose, and the city of Timbuktu as a learning center. So basically, there was trade across the Sahara Desert. So people moved in caravans. Now, camel caravans were basically their only means of transport in that era. And these caravans consisted of carts, wagons, camels, and coaches. And they traveled one after the other, one behind the other, like a train, but it was but made out of camels. And it was an important part of the trade in the Sahara Desert. And without the camels, basically trade wouldn't have been possible. And the reason why they used camels was because they were uniquely adapted to survive long periods without water in the desert. Now, you must know that the desert is a dry place. So, and it's also very hot. So and they had a lot of windstorms over there. So these camels had long eyelashes that protected them from the windstorm. It had large nostrils where they could absorb lots of water vapor. It had thick skin so it could adapt to the changes in temperature, which is hot during the day and cold in the night. And it also had milk, which was rich in vitamins and minerals, where the people that rode them had food, a source of food that they could have. Now, camels were called ships of the desert. Now, you know, you had the seas in the sea, and then you had the ships in the sea, and the ships used to use the sun and the stars to find their way through to navigate. So this was how the camels used to navigate. They used to use the sun and the stars. That's why they were called ships of the desert. Now, the traders traveled across the Sahara Desert using these camel caravans because basically they did not want to get attacked by robbers. So they traveled in large groups. They also traveled early in the morning and late in the night when it was cooler. The other traveling across the desert, and you could see the desert is fast, dry, and quite sandy. Right, so now this is a map of Africa, Europe, and Arabia, Asia, and where Arabia is. Now you could see these lines going from Timbuktu. Timbuktu is on your left. So all these lines were basically the trade routes. So Timbuktu was in West Africa. It went across the Sahara Desert to Egypt, Cairo, Arabia, and to Mecca. And then the other trade route was up to North Africa. Now you can see these crosses, these were salt mines. And they also traded with Europe. So that was basically the trade route. Now they traded because they wanted to spread religion, and also they wanted to trade goods between the different regions. Like, for example, if Timbuktu didn't have salt, but they had gold, and North Africa and Europe had salt, so they traded with them. Now, why was trade important? It was important because there was an exchange of goods between regions. It was a major trade route between North Africa and West Africa and the Mediterranean. So it connected areas, and different people came into cities with learning about different cultures. And the trade was basically the Arabian camels carried goods such as rugs, swords, daggers, and glasses. And these were goods that were imported from Arabia. And the salt was brought in from Europe and North Africa. Then the Arabs would exchange goods from the Malayans, which were gold, slaves, ivory, and ostrich eggs. And these were goods that were exported from Mali. Now, Islam spread across North Africa to West Africa. Now, Islam started in the middle of the 7th century, and from the 9th century, the Arab Muslim traders from the Middle East traveled to West Africa, and they brought their religion with them. Now, the people of West Africa started converting to Islam, firstly because they wanted to get better prices from the Muslims. Muslims require people to become literate, so it gave them a chance to read and write, to learn how to read and write. Now, the Muslims played an important role as advisors in the African community, and the rulers used them. By the 1300, the king of Mali, which was Mansa Musa, he decided that he was going to make Mali an Islamic state, because he believed that they benefited materially and spiritually from the Arabs. So this influenced basically the growth and the development of Mali, and by the 13th century, Mali became a powerful state. They kept good records of goods that were bought and sold. This meant that their administration was very efficient, and Islam spread in Mali not through wars, it only merely through international trade and commerce. and it was gradual. People were not forced to become Muslims. They did it on their own. Before we go to Mansa Musa, let's see the previous slide. We have, come on. Okay, so people benefited materially and spiritually from the Arabs because they basically helped develop their culture. Now, we'll see you in my next lesson. I don't forget to like and share. And in my next lesson, we're going to discuss Mansa Musa. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye.